Now I know we do all these different kinds of fishing. We got the beach stuff, the inshore red fishing, all that stuff, and y'all seen us do that. But we do a lot of reef fishing here. It's probably the most popular kind of fishing to do. That's where we catch our red snappers and groupers and kingfish and amberjacks and all those species. So the reef fishing is really important to us.
I think that was my fish.
All right, so we're gonna catch the snapper slam today. We got the mangrove, here's your red. How will these reefs get there? Some of them are naturally occurring reefs that are, already there, but a lot of these reefs we put out there for the fish to live on so that we can go catch them.
So behind me are reels that we're repurposing for use as artificial reefs. These were donated from Ocean Engineering from some of the industrial operations that they have here, where they weave different types of communication cables and also various pieces of pipeline together to service the oil and gas industry.
Man, these spools are massive. I mean, they're 35 feet tall. Now, when you're talking about building artificial reefs, you have to have specialized equipment, and there's probably only a few places that can do this.
So initially the project was started March of 2021 when we received information that Oceaneering had some reels that they were interested in providing to the Artificial Reef Program and the Bay County Board of County Commissioners.
One of the neat things about these artificial reef deployments is it's basically just a big experiment.
Artificial reefs are monumental, and I wanted to be a part of this project in whatever capacity that I could. So working with the Bay County Extension, I can take it from a scientific perspective and look at these fish populations to see what's lacking, and then we have the opportunity to put the reef structures in place to kind of bring this bridge together with the mesopelagic fish that are moving from the seagrasses. We'll have this nice middle ground right before they go off into being the deep sea species that they are.
I've watched these deployments go out for decades, and every time they do it, they're putting a lot of the similar structures in different areas. Now they can take the exact same type of structure and put it half a mile away on the same type of bottom, and all of a sudden that has more amberjacks or grouper on it. And so it's really a big experiment, and they put these structures out there, we know what they are, but you have to get out there and fish them to realize what each type of structure is going to hold.
The Gulf of Mexico and Northwest Florida in general is unconsolidated sand, interrupted with little patches of limestone that hold typically lots of fish. It's exciting that we are able to complement those natural areas with projects like this, with hard substrate that mimics some of the harder coils that we might be more familiar with in South Florida. We can put those types of structures here in Northwest Florida to support our fishing and diving community and the recreational users that come to visit us.
So we put a lot of different types of structure out in the Gulf for these fish to live on. It's what we call artificial reefs.
So the artificial reef materials that we're looking for are stable and durable and have a life expectancy of greater than 50 years. Those would be the perfect materials. Some of those are concrete, which are engineered specifically for artificial reefs. Sometimes they come to us as secondary materials, which could mean boats or vessels that we see, large ships, retired military aircraft as an example of secondary use materials.
It's a very highly regulated system to put these reefs out here, so you can't just go sink stuff on your own, and there's only certain approved materials you can use.
It's not easy just to show up one day and roll the reels off into the water and expect that they will land upright. A lot of work goes into preparation before we even get to the point of deployment day. One of the things we had to work out is how we were going to deploy the reefs. And so this required a little bit of research, and some information that we had pointed to historical deployments where they had used barges in the past and set up a two-rail system. The two-rail system is important because it makes sure that the reels roll true off of the end of the barge and then sit straight up and down. So to do that, we had to work to get the proper metal and then weld it to the barge. We rely on large cranes that were provided to us by the Port of Panama City and their crews and their expertise to work together with the marine contractor to get the reels upon the barge in the proper way.
Now, if you wonder why we're trying to set them vertically on the barge, is because we want them to sink vertically and land on the bottom vertically because we want that relief off the bottom. That's what attracts a lot of these fish.
We've got 3 reels that are in the neighborhood of about 30 feet in diameter and weigh close to 50 tons. The largest reel that we have is about 35 feet tall. It weighs nearly 60 tons. All of the reels that we have, 5 total, are going to be sunk in 2 different locations, about 11 nautical miles southwest of St. Andrew Bay Pass.
We're blessed in Bay County to have a variety of marine contractors that can help us with a project that's this complex.
I've learned so much since we started doing this show about how these artificial reefs work, not just deployment and stuff like that, but the areas they put them in, and then, you know, how fish take to them. All right, so we just ran out to an artificial reef, not too far out. You still see all the condos right here. I've had a great opportunity to get to talk with people like these biologists with the Fish and Wildlife here locally, but then I also get to talk with people like Dr. Guy Harvey, who is probably more knowledgeable about building reefs and how the marine ecosystem works than anybody I know for sure. All right, I'm back with Dr. Guy Harvey here, and I don't know if y'all remember a few years ago on Chasin The Sun TV, we interviewed him talking about some artificial reefs. Well, today we're going to talk about more artificial reefs because our population keeps growing in Panama City Beach. We have more people on the water fishing every year. So the way that I think we keep up with that is building more reefs, right?
How have the reefs you've deployed 6 years ago, how have they performed?
The next year we were fishing on this and we were catching fish.
That's amazing. And of course, the recruitment process on artificial reefs is what we're after. For the entertainment and the fishing value, but also from a scientific and biological value, the accumulation of new life that an artificial reef causes is measurable, and that's why it's so important to say how well did this reef do over that period, that 6-year period. What do you expect it to do over the next 6 years, and when do you need to replace them, because they do have a limited life eventually. Yeah. So what are you using now, Justin, for your artificial reefs?
Our local government has teamed up with like Oceaneering, which builds these giant metal spools. So in 100 feet of water, that thing's going to be 30 feet off the bottom.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, that's good structure for a lot of different species of fish.
Yeah.
And of course, you want sessile animals to settle all over your artificial reef, little barnacles, soft corals, hard corals, and to grow the biomass generally, provide shelter for baby fish, bigger fish, and the predatory fish that we like to catch, and multiply that formula over a wide area.
His life mission is making the oceans of the world a better place, not just for fish, but for us to be able to enjoy as well. You know, this is dangerous, unforgiving work these guys are doing at the port, and I just want to give them a shout out because they work around the clock to keep this city running, to keep ships coming in, going out, getting loaded, unloaded safely. Lets us live the way of life that we do.
Not every community has all of the resources that we have in Panama City. We have a group of folks that routinely, this is their job every day, is to unload cargo and move large items off of ships arriving daily at our port. This crew was vital in helping us with this project. The skill that it takes to safely maneuver from the shoreline out to the deployment area and requires a lot of knowledge and skill to adapt to those conditions that are ever changing. On the day that we deployed the largest reel, which is 35 feet tall and weighs over 60 tons, that was the only reel that we took out because of the stability and the things that are required to move that size of a reel to the deployment site. There is actually some ballast water that was placed in the aft portion of the barge so that it rolled off easily with just a gentle slope and a slow amount of roll. And what I like to say was a slow roll and a big splash.
It'll, draw more tourism to us, but it's also going to provide a basis for education for those that weren't aware that we have such a large, reef structure going from Escambia all the way down to Gulf. It's going to give tourists more opportunities to get out in the water, to ask questions and learn about why the fish populations are so viable here, and maybe even get them involved. We might have folks that'll come into the state for vacation, and it could lead to them staying to become a greater part of the community that we're trying to establish now.
It takes about 3 to 5 years for the reef to reach its full capacity. Initially, we'll see bait fish and transient species like barracuda come through and show up. Within a few months, then we'll start to see some of the prized reef fish like grouper and snapper show up and call the reef home. Following that, we can expect tourists and divers and fishermen to show up for decades to come.
So now that these schools are on the bottom, I bet they're already covered up with bait fish, and I can't wait to get out there soon and see what kind of fish are already taking up residence on the latest artificial reefs.